Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Media Over QUIC, second session. We're going to begin on time as usual. This is the IETF note well. We are now on day 4. Everyone knows this, but you can see there at the bottom all the BCPs, and they have a nice little handy title for what those things are about. So if you're interested in the implications, legal or otherwise, of you participating here, those listed BCPs tell you what you need to know. As always, the last several IETFs, we've been asked to remind people to behave appropriately, do not harass people, do not succumb to the cultural trend of being really awful to each other as we often are online. We're using Metaco, you get that right from the plenary, for our meeting support tool. So if you would like to enter the queue, just raise your hand. If you are remote, please use headphones because of some of the failures of the noise cancellation tool that we have. If you're remote, please turn on your mic probably about a second before you're going to speak because there is a lot of latency there for some reason. And finally, if you are here in the room and you're using the full client, be sure to mute your laptop audio so we don't have any echoing.
There's one thing more, which if you have a personal hotspot, ensure it's off because there are a lot of the problems with the Wi-Fi network here is related to people running personal hotspots. So
I'm going to mute my phone. Okay, this was our agenda yesterday for Tuesday, which is too late to bash. Here's what is going to happen today. We're going to have another brief follow-up on our brief discussion about naming, and you can see what else is there. Would anyone like to bash the agenda? Okay. We need to scribe. Oh, go ahead, Alan.
The slide says there may be discussion of new group, but there will not be discussion.
Oh yes, thank you. Right, that is not coming together in time. Okay, we need a scribe, and I forgot to ask for one. So now we get to look. Thank you, Emily. Would anyone like to help back up Emily? Thank you, Suhas. You also did it on Tuesday. Thanks to both of you. Okay, I would like to announce our upcoming interims. We had a comment period on our virtual interims, and that period is concluded. I sent out an email last night, and for those of you who are not on the list, those are the dates, those are the times. We will see you online for that, and for quite some time now, we've announced our next hybrid interim, which will be in Toronto. Thank you, Colin, for hosting at Cisco's offices in downtown Toronto. We will have a 2-day interop by popular demand for people who want to do that. And then, as usual, 2 days of structured meeting time. And as always, we haven't gotten any comments about our virtual interim tempo and timing and scheduling, et cetera, for quite some time. But I want to emphasize the chairs are always open to that sort of feedback. This 1600 UTC time seems to work for most participants, and we haven't had complaints in a while. So the reason we're continuing to do that time is because we're not getting complaints. So if you don't like it, please complain. Okay. Again, I want to time box this quite a bit. We had a conversation about renaming MOQ on Tuesday. In the judgment of Magnus and I, there was not consensus to reopen that particular issue. But the structure of the question kind of left open whether we were going to retain the acronym and change what the acronym stood for, or maybe have it stand for nothing. So I've learned from bitter experience that constructing show of hands questions in real time is dangerous, so I refrain from doing that, so we're going to do it today. I'm about to ask the group, do we want to have a discussion about repurposing the acronym or just leave it as Media Over QUIC? If anyone would like to approach the mic and spend less than 30 seconds talking about this, you're welcome to do so. Colin.
I can't tell where I am in the queue, Colin Jace.
Good.
I felt like a lot, just agree with the consensus call, that there's not consensus change the thing. I really like the proposal that many people had of many things over quick, because that got to the heart of what people were having the problems with on this. I understand what the charter of the working group says, but I think the practicality of what the protocol comes, that would be a much better thing. Unlike some other things where we say it means nothing, I don't think it was a very good candidate for that, because some words like quick, where it was really, the word meant something sort of, where this one, the thing that it unfortunately means is not very good. So
I believe fake is the correct synonym.
Yeah, so I would prefer that making an acronym that doesn't mean anything, I think is a bad choice for us. And I really like the possible other changes.
Thanks, Colin. I didn't make this clear, but let's try to avoid discussion alternatives this morning. Will.
So I was agreeing with Colin till the very last part. So I'm actually a fan of that doesn't mean anything. I think the symmetry with quick is very nice, given that we're many things over quick. And I think in the vernacular, we can refer to many things over quick. But I tried putting logos together with many things over, and it's just an awkward construct. Whereas MOQ is so much cleaner and easier. So I think it's a practical. I appreciate everything Colin's saying. It's not the best verb, right? But it's still a good name.
Thank you, Will. Victor? Victor, I think your sound cut out if you're still talking. Oh, no, you're gone. Okay. Victor, you can submit your comment to the chat if you're having technical issues. Go ahead, Ted.
Ted Hardy, I really think this is a bike shed discussion that would do better on the list, because we could even just change the pronunciation and call it MOQ, and get around MOQ sounds like something bad. This is just going to keep going in spirals. We got other things to do.
This is the end unless we decide to have but if we decide to open this discussion, it is happening on the list. We are not going to play Pirate King.
It's a dispatch question. I suggest we dispatch to the list.
Okay, well, all right, or just dispatch it to Dub Null, is the question.
Dub Null would be even better, but I think out of this room where we have precious face-to-face time would be good.
Agreed. Okay, thank you, Ted. So let's jump right to it. It's a great opportunity for you to join the Medico section if you have not already. And to be clear, this discussion will not happen in this room. It will happen on the list.
I can no longer reach the server. So give me a little extra time to get to this. Retrying again.
Clarifying question. What do you mean by repurposing MOQ? Do you mean changing to another acronym or redefining what MOQ means?
That it does not stand for media over quick. It has some other meaning, whatever that is. Because the status quo is MOQ is an acronym for, or MOQ is an acronym for media over quick. So if you would like to change that, we've already decided we're keeping MOQ. Okay.
Have you managed, Colin?
Give me a little bit. I'm getting close. Like the session locks you out in a very hard way. So.
All set? All right. Is anyone still struggling to vote with the device? Mike? Okay. Are your slides ready, Mike? That's higher priority than your vote.
Yes, I have to approve them.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Do you just want to say what your vote is, or is it private? You would like to have a discussion about it. Okay, lovely. I'm going to close it. Let the record show that 8 people, including Mike there, would like to have this discussion 21 want it to go away, and 8 people do not care. Thank you very much. Magnus and I will take those numbers into consideration. We'll take it to the list, but it looks like we're sticking with it. All right. Now that that's out of the way, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Next up is Mike with our interop report. This works now.
Oh, fancy.
It was operator
I think 2
confidence.
slides, so.
Okay, well, this is our trial run.
Okay. All right. So there was some interop at the hackathon and throughout this week. We have a lot more test cases now, as you can see, which is great. But we're starting to run out of letters, which is frustrating. Yeah, so I think a few things were helpful in interop this time. We had a good number of people present at the hackathon, and we also had some relay server implementations that were kind of just on a published host and port, which made it easy to continue hacking when people were not in the same room. So we had some remote participation as well. A lot of people interrupt against some of the implementations that had first implemented the draft and had a relay up and running and ready to interrupt against. So besides interrupting on draft 12, which was the interrupt target for this session, we also encouraged people to interrupt on whatever version they had. So we had some interrupt, I believe, with Coda's mocktail implementation on draft 11 against Moxygen. We had some, it does work. We had some additional interrupt on draft 7, which is quite old, but that is what I have recently started rolling out at Cloudflare. So Lorenzo was actually able to land on some hosts that had this draft 7 implementation running and achieved some degree of interrupt, which was fun. Any questions?
Do you have any? Oh, go ahead, Alan.
Alan from Dell. My question is sort of a little bit for the room, which is we did something slightly different this time, which was we cut the interrupt target draft. I forget exactly which day, probably like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks before our interrupt time. Did that feel like the right amount of time, too much time, not enough time? And how should we do it for the next, like our next big hackathon will be in Toronto. So when do you approximately want the next interrupt draft cut?
So I think that's a question for the group.
While people join the queue, I can say I felt like this was a good timing. So I didn't get everything implemented, but I knew it was coming, and I was able to like jump in and get a few things done.
So I was just responding to Alan. I think every time there's no time, not enough time to do it. So I don't think we should definitely define what's a good time to cut off. But I would say this time between draft 11 and draft 12, there are a lot of changes that happened. That kind of contributed to not everyone being there in time to prepare. And also this time, the problems with all the visa and everything, people could not, I know a few people who could not come in time for hackathon either. So some of those things contributed to, usually at least Cisco Quicker, we try to interpret with the 2 or 3 implementations. This time we could do mainly with Alan's implementation. I would like to have gotten more time to do with a couple of more stacks.
Jordi Sonsano, Meta. I think answering Alan, the time is okay, obviously, more time the better. But what I would love to see, if possible, is more clarity. So one thing is the difference between draft 11, draft 12. So I'm lucky that I have Alan that works in the same company, and he can do perfect summaries. But for other people that is outside, it's very difficult to read the draft 12 and do a mental diff with draft 8 and see what is the difference of that. I think that is one thing. And another thing is more clear interrupt targets. So I can ask Alan, what is interrupt target? And he tells me. But something, a web page or something very clear that everybody can access and say, draft 12 is next interrupt target, and media target would be whatever. And those are the targets for that date. I would love to see something like that. Thank you.
Yeah, the editors have been including like a change log in the draft now, which is new as of 11 or 12. Yeah.
So Alan's, I mean, unless you heard something different, it sounds like you're probably going to do draft 14 end of August or so, and then maybe a 15 right before Toronto, or maybe not. Okay, but certainly a 14 at the end of August-ish.
I mean, I guess one of the questions is how useful did people find that we cut 13 on the draft deadline because we could.
Yeah.
But it had very few changes relative to 12. I don't know that it served a purpose. So I don't need to cut a draft like right before Toronto just to say that we did.
Okay.
But if people want it, it's fine. It's easy.
And I'm certainly fine with it personally with an editor's copy. Does anyone really want a snapshot from like a data tracker snapshot before Toronto of where we are? Or is this just useful for interop?
Maybe the other question is what's going on with consensus calls and drafts?
Yeah, Magnus and I need to catch up on that.
And then, sorry, I forgot to mention, it would be great to have a mechanism to announce if there are bugs in the draft. So bugs that makes interop impossible. To very clearly and loudly say, hey, we found this, there is a bug here. The fix for everybody has to be there. There is one in draft 12 I'm mentioning because of that.
Okay, so maybe the answer is just to do like a draft 15 if there's a bug fix that's crucial.
Well, I think, speaking for myself, I think what's helpful is having the snapshot target and then knowing kind of up to the minute, like what bugs have people found that we all agree to solve the same way. And then that can land in
I think fixing it in 15 is not a solution because then you force everybody to go to 15.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
This is a question more for so we have a lot of stuff that seems to be blocked on waiting for this ALPN to be there. And I'm sort of wondering if like we have an estimate on that, or if we could stop blocking on that and just be like, yeah, okay, we have two versions where you can't implement both at the same time. You have to know what you're implementing with or some other mechanism. Is there, like, I'd like to try and figure our way out of this logjam. We've been here for too long. Any thoughts from implementers on best path for that here?
My understanding is the web transport folks have sorted that functionality out, and it's pretty stable. And so I think we should just move forward. Right, or no?
Okay. My question, we just need one browser, and Chrome's kind of the one that we're using right now. Sorry, Martin. But if Chrome supports the new LPN thing in web transport, like as soon as that's there, even if it's like, I don't know if people are okay downloading the beta or whatever, but like, or the nightly channel, but like, that's all we need.
Is Victor on? I think Victor implemented it. I think it's just a matter of shipping it. Okay. Well, I will try to follow up with Victor, but I think I've been clear that we want to prioritize that in Chrome. So not that I am on the Chrome team, so that makes it hard, but still. Oh.
Victor, if you're hearing this, maybe you can punt to the mailing list something, rough guess of when it might happen or something. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions about interop? Thank you, Mike.
I just realized I forgot my name badge. So I'm Mike English, Cloudflare.
Thank you. Next up, we have our warp update. Our newly adopted draft. We gave you 15 minutes.
15, okay.
There you go.
So good morning, my name is Will Law. I'm from Akamai. I'm going to be talking about Warp, which is a draft outside of our core transport but it's there to provide media delivery. You'll also notice, if you've been playing along with us for the last 2 years, I usually have a logo saying Media Over QUIC. And between yesterday and today, I changed it to MOQ because I think that's our direction. And I give a feedback, it's just a lot cleaner and easier if we just call this thing MOQ and move on. So this is an update for Warp. I'm going to cover some of the main PRs merged since Stockholm. So we did constrain group numbering. In the core transport, it's very flexible, just has to be a number. It can go up or down, any way you like it. We've constrained it such that it must be a unique integer that will not repeat in the future. So you can start at 0 and go up. We also suggest you can use milliseconds since epoch, which is a nice convention for live streams. It doesn't repeat, and just by examining the very first object, you pin in time where this stream was existing. After that, it monotonically increases, so we know when gaps are occurring. And if there is a gap, you need to signal it using the gap extension header. We also added a new field. It was called type, following feedback at Stockholm. It's now called role. This describes every track in terms of, is it video, audio, is it timeline caption, subtitle, audio description. This is necessary if we want to start carrying commercial levels of media on Warp. We need these attributes in our description. So that's merged in. We also added a generated at field in the catalog. So the catalog can be produced at any time. We suggest it's produced whenever there's a change in track availability or content characteristics. And this just adds a timestamp with millisecond resolution to say when this catalog was produced. I found in debugging all sorts of media playlists, it's very useful to know the sequence at which things are coming out. And especially for stale playlists, we had no way of knowing if what the player received is stale, in fact. We also added an is live attribute. I am one of the fans of VOD from the beginning for MOQ. It's a very simple extension. It just means you need a slightly larger cache, and now you can do VOD. But to signal, we have an attribute that a track is true. We define live as a state in which new objects will or may be added to the track in the future. They don't have to be immediately added, might be sparsely live, but it's still live. It's false if no new objects will ever be added to the track. So it's done. And once it's done, you know its duration. So if isLive is false, you can now signal what is the track duration, the complete one. There is some ambiguity to be had here. Say I have 5 tracks with different track durations. What is the overall duration of my broadcast, if you want to call it that? Maybe it's the max, maybe it's the min. We might have to look at that in the future. I've also, from experience, found with live streams, it's very hard to know when they're actually properly done, right? You know when you're publishing on localhost, you know, oh, I stop encoding and it stops. But in the wild, players have a hard time telling the difference between a problem that's occurred and a clean and intentional finish by the original publisher. So now we've added workflow rules for how to terminate a live broadcast. You basically send subscribe done on all the active tracks that you're publishing. And at the same time, we have a discrete flag called isCompleteTrue that cleanly and deterministically indicates that this broadcast is over. And your player can make the appropriate UI changes after that. Now, the issue I actually want feedback on is I want a URL syntax for Warp, and it needs to specify 2 things. It needs to help you connect to your delivery network. I'm calling it an MDN, a MOQ delivery network versus a CDN. And we can do this with an HTTPS URL. We can connect with web transport, right? So it pretty much looks like any web transport URL. But then we also want to describe the namespace and the name that point at the catalog, because that's our starting point with Warp, and that gives us information about everything else. So I can take these 2 and just combine them in the lower example, and this seems relatively trivial. The problem, however, comes in separating which parts belong to the connection and which parts belong to the namespace name. So in the upper example, you can see the 2 left elements, or the 4 left elements in this case, might hold data that the MOQ delivery network wants to use to process the incoming connection correctly. So we need a way of generically being able to differentiate the two. So I put up some possible solutions here. One is we don't define this. We leave it up to negotiation between the content distributors, the CDN, and the players to configure out of band. This means everything can be different. Again, from experience, I think this is a little brittle. It changes. Another option is we designate the first path segment always belongs to the connection. You can always add a path in there even if you don't need it and you don't need to process it, but mostly in a delivery network, you do want to provide some other attributes that might help you route this correctly. So in this case, in customer ID, you notice what was previously customer ID/app ID is now customer ID-app ID. So you can come up with your own separators and encode as much information as you want into that first element. Third one is we create a reserved path separator. I used bang here. We can make up another one that separates the two. Or another approach. So I'll pause for feedback. I see we got 3 people for questions for Q, so I should probably pause anyway.
Mike English, Cloudflare. Okay, so I think that having some kind of mapping from a URL to namespace and track is extremely useful. This is a good idea. I don't honestly care all that much about the exact syntax of it, but I did want to remind everyone that namespaces and names currently can contain arbitrary bytes. So the question for you then is there a particular encoding that you suggest using for bytes that are not, in the...
Yes. So they can be an arbitrary array of bytes in MOQ transport, but in warp, they're going to be constrained to be URL friendly. I think that's a reasonable constraint.
Okay. I think this may be a larger problem that is worth solving outside of warp too, but okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ted?
Came up to ask the same question that MT asked in the chat, which is why we wouldn't use like URL templates for this.
Sorry, why we wouldn't use what?
URL templates for this? Are you thinking that these clients wouldn't be able to handle that, or?
Can you explain what you mean by URL template in this case?
I'll send you a link,
Yeah.
but I think this approach is going to be fragile. You're going to have to pick like a query separator or something like that, escape it and trust everybody to do that. Where I think you're going to get better results using a URL template. So I'll send you a link to that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. So that falls under another approach that is better. Related question. Okay, Ted's gone. Another question on this is tokenization. So we can specify a token for warp as a query arg, but we've got a token. We got 2 tokens we want. One is an actual token to connect to your MOQ delivery network. And this was a request from Mike English. He's like, I don't even want to process the setup. I don't want to process client setup unless the client's authorized. Because if we process client setup, we can take our single token and just put it, give it to the player as a query org, and we can reserve a name. So we say it's always called warp token, and when the player sees that, it knows I extract this base 64 and I use it anywhere that I need to authenticate either my connection or my action. But the other example is we can just take that and serialize it into the path. So this was an answer to Mike's question of, hey, I need 2 different tokens here, one to protect the actual connection and another to protect the MOQ actions once I'm working there. So that is a potential solution, and maybe Ted's templating can also address the passing of 2 tokens. Okay.
So thank you for addressing this question. I think this may be helpful for some cases, but in practice, I have a preference for a bearer token. So I would rather not be putting credentials in the path or in the query string. because those are sometimes processed by other systems and end up in logs and things like that. So it's not necessarily the ideal, but it's maybe useful. Thank you.
So, yeah, I encourage people to go vote in the Web Transport W3C, where we have an open issue for header support, which would allow the solution Mike's describing from a browser. And hopefully that comes in. And then, yes, so just for the note taker, if we can add standard bearer tokens for access control in addition to any path field, that would be good. Alan?
Alan Frindell. So both in the previous slide and on this one, I'm a little confused about what's going on in this URL. Is this like an API into a warp library, which will separate into an actual URL that we'll use to establish a web transport connection, and then a track that it will subscribe to once MOQ has been established? Or are you sending this whole URL over HTTP and the receiver somehow auto subscribes or something to this track? And the same sort of question with the token that goes inside of MOQ-T, like you're sending it in the URL, are you sending it on the wire there, or is it going to get broken apart?
So let me explain the scope here. This is an analog or an equivalent of a playlist URL that a content management system vends to a player. It's what you give a player when you want them to come and play your broadcast. And we don't want to give them three different things. We don't want to give them a token, a URL to connect to the CDN, and then a third thing, which is the namespace name of the catalog to go retrieve. So we're trying to combine all of those into something that fits existing workflow engines, all of which will vend a single URL to a live stream. And that's what we're attempting to create here.
Okay, but I think my question is, what happens next? Like do I just open an HTTP connection and send that as my web transport?
Yes, you would put that whole string into your web transport connect.
Okay, I mean, then I'm a little confused about what happens, because now we're sending a bunch of stuff that belongs inside the MOQ-T session, outside of the MOQ-T session. And
that's why the prior slide, we need to separate the two. So the CDN that gets this, right, it's only going to look at the first or second temp, some fraction of this URL is what you use to route to it, right? The rest of it is then the player knows, okay, because I'm playing a warp stream, and I know I know how to extract namespace name, and that's what I use to go subscribe to my catalog once I'm inside.
Okay, I think maybe we need to spend a little bit more time on this flow in particular. We're skipping MOQ-T session version negotiation in here. So if we change the format of something that, I don't know, I think we should just, I get what you're trying to do and I understand, but I think there's more details.
Okay, so I'll follow up with you afterwards.
Okay, Colin Chase. So I think one of the things that I thought for a big chunk of work we need to deal with was discovery, by which I mean exactly this problem. And I totally get that we want a single URL inside of existing content systems to work, but I think there's a lot of issues, and just trying to slam these two URLs together into one is going to run into a lot of problems. I think we need to think about that quite deeper. And I will point out, if I go to if I want to watch a Netflix thing and it's being delivered by a CDN that's from Akamai, the URL I get doesn't necessarily have Akamai in it, right? Like that. So there's various things that will come together to bring this discovery together of how you figure out what your MOQ-T transport URL is given a sort of namespace thing. And I don't disagree that this is part of the solution, but I think this is a bigger topic that we should wrap up in a generalized way, and it just has a whole bunch of complicated issues in it. And I'd love to I think the time is now to be working on this, but like maybe we need like a couple hours, some slides and proposals and a couple hours in an interim to talk about discovery in general, including work. So
fair point, and that's why this is an issue, not a PR at this stage, because it clearly needs input.
I'm closing the queue very soon.
Okay.
Rowan May. So my privacy alarm bells went off when I saw, when I heard a single web token that encompasses information from here, there, and everywhere for the linkability issues. So if somebody's, watching some adult content video and like all of a sudden a bunch of people all over the web are tracking that information, maybe you want to consider some privacy use cases for that. Thanks.
Okay, and that's the last slide. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Will. I just want to call your attention to the fact the chat's been quite active on this subject, so I would encourage you to review that for further feedback.
Do we record the chat? Or?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's archived forever in Zulip. All right, and yes, you know what you're doing. You're staying up here because I'm supposed to give you more slides.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we just have 10 minutes for this.
Correct.
So now we get into authentication. Cat for mocked. This has an even cooler logo. It has a cat in it. Authentication and access control for MOQT using common access token. I'm not going to give an overview. We've presented this several times. I'm just going to go straight into what's changed since last time. So we had a nice contribution from Chris Lemons to fill out the definition of the new MOQT claim. It actually has now an array of action limits that are put in there, and I'll show you the allowed actions in the next slide. And we also defined a binary match. Previously, we were inheriting from Common Access Token, which used text matching. So now we have exact, prefix, suffix, and contains as our possible match actions. And we have separate matches for the namespace tuples and for the track name. They're evaluated separately because we've agreed that they're not concatenated in the evaluation. So that's in there. These are now the actions you can protect with cat4mock token. So we've added client setup and server setup, and then all the actions that basically take a token attribute in the message are now described here. And we were going to use their message ID, but we thought that got a little weird. Every time MOQT changed, we had to go change our aspect. So we're just listing them in numerical order. I don't think it's an issue. Richard.
Yeah, just quick clarifying question. I'm a little surprised to see the client setup, server setup things here. I'm wondering what the semantic of that is, because it seems like if you can't do those actions, you can't do anything in the protocol.
That's correct. So we want to protect people who have no right doing anything on the protocol. So we want to pass a token at the very first action you take, which is setup. And if you're not authorized to set up this connection, then the server is going to reject you immediately. And it can move both ways. So both client and server can send these, although typically it's mostly going to be a client sending to the server. And so just to remind you, on the left-hand side, we have all these actions, and then the utility of inheriting common access token is that we can get all the claims that we can now apply to this. So I can say you can only connect within a certain time range from a certain CIDR, from an AS number, from a geolocation. We can use Depop, we can have probability of rejection. We inherit a whole lot of strong protections for our content, and we apply them not only to the connection, but to the behaviors of the client once it's connected. So can you publish only from Las Vegas and subscribe only from Florida? Yes, we can enforce those. This is just showing you if you want to enforce prefix match, it's an example. So we're doing, you must exactly match example.com. We're using strings here. Remember, this is all binary. So even the strings are coerced to binary, and it does, per Suhas's comment, per Mike's comment, support binary namespace and name blobs. Now, when you want to do multiple actions in the same token, so here we're basically saying you can publish to any track beginning with Bob, but you can only publish logs to a different URL, and you must do both of these before a certain expiry date. So the syntax is pretty flexible for applying some quite complex behavior control and access control on the client. There was just an update yesterday from Chris on composite claims. So this is where we want to combine the claims. So we want to put several cat tokens and then instruct the evaluator of them. In this case, it's an OR. You can either publish a track name beginning with Bob, or you can publish logs to somewhere else. And we have OR, we have and we also have a crit or critical combination, which is you must support this as a server in order to allow this client to connect. And that's available in his draft update. It went to 0.1 yesterday. So a prior issue we had was when our claims evaluated in long duration sessions. So Common Access Token was developed. It's a resource request, right? So you evaluate it once when you're requesting the resource. But if we're saying you're allowed to publish over a time range, how often does the server check that you're still within that time range? Is it every object that's sent, every group that's sent? And we came up with Chris came up with a solution, which is the MOQ revalidate claim. And it basically gives a wall clock time interval over which the server must revalidate. The unit is seconds because we could not find a use case where we need to revalidate faster than that. And evaluating tokens can be computationally expensive. So we think the seconds interval is sufficient. And basically, you have to reval the token at this limit, and the default is 0, which means you don't need to reevaluate it. You evaluate it once when it's received, and you don't reval. Richard.
So tokens already expire, right? So it seems like we kind of have two time horizons here. How would you contrast the utility of this thing with the utility of expire? Because it seems like expire is already expressing that the authorization server believes that this entity is authorized for this length of time.
So time. And because we have an expiry claim, yes, it overlaps with this reval claim. You don't need reval for expiry. You do need it if I say you can only connect from Las Vegas. Now, how often does it go and revalidate your location? And that's really what this is addressing here. So for time-based, there's an overlap. You can just set an expiry, and you don't need to evaluate it before the expiry. So we should probably add some language to say, don't bother setting a reval interval. You just wouldn't, right? You would just revalidate at the indicated expiry time. But there's a whole lot of other claims that you do need to evaluate periodically.
Okay, thanks.
And we have an open issue. What type of matches do we really need? So do we need exact prefix, suffix, and contains? Or would exact and prefix be sufficient? Because for the mechanics of MOQT, we only evaluate from the left, right? For namespace matching and also for name matching. So this is an open question. Do we need the utility? I think there could be use cases in the future where you're going to code some particular aspect of something on the right side. So you might want a suffix match, but we don't have file extensions or anything, which is what it's typically used for. So we're open to input here. Who else?
I would say, like, I agree with you. Going with something like all the 4 would be useful. At this point in time, I can find why a suffix might be useful. Contents, I need to think through, but there's no data to not to allow it. So I would
say we've got it, just leave it. And if people don't use it, they don't use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Other than an implementation headache, but I don't think any of these are too complex at the binary level. Okay, that's the first question. Second one is actually interesting, and I opened up an issue against mock transport because I think this still applies. When we say we evaluate tuple fields, is there an implicit assumption that we don't state that you must evaluate the entirety of the tuple field? So in the example, I've got a namespace and I'm using slashes to indicate field boundaries, right? Customer, application, instance. If I do a match on cust, just the start of customer, in mock transport, does that match, or I have to match the entirety of the first field? I'm asking implementers who actually do this today.
Just a quick question on this. How big do you think a token is going to be? A couple of kilobytes?
It can be a couple of kilobytes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alan Frindell, at least at the transport, the idea is that you will only ever match a whole field at a time, a whole tuple field.
Even with a prefix match. So when we say we're prefix matching, we match contiguous fields starting at the left.
Yes. That's and you opened the issue, and it is a little bit vague in the transport draft, but we're going to clarify that. That's the intention. If somebody else thinks something else, please come and tell me.
Okay.
I was going to say exactly the same. In the base draft, I think it has to be that it matches the whole field.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to put in a partial field match into that because of the performance concerns. But I think it's a totally different story there. Here, what we do there doesn't imply what we need to do here.
Well,
because these token evaluations are done at a very different rate and are much more complicated to start with. Like we can, I'm not saying we need it. I'm just saying we can do whatever we want here, and it doesn't have the reasons we did it in the base draft are not the same.
We're using this matching to constrain mock transport actions. So it's very weird if we don't actually in the match we define also use the same match that's defined in mock transport. We could define a sub-match works here, but then it won't work in the underlying transport, and we're explicitly trying to constrain that. So I see a strong need to correlate them.
No, I don't think so. So the reason for the matching in the base transport draft is we're trying to, on every single data packet, trying to describe, like in a UDP case or whatever, trying to decide where it goes. Here, when you evaluate the token, you're trying to decide whether you're still in Las Vegas or not, right? I mean, these are two very different levels. I'm not seeing, well, maybe I'm missing it. Let me listen.
But you're evaluating if you're Las Vegas or not for a given namespace and name. You always have to, it's because your token is being supplied with a subscribe or with a publish, right?
But okay, I can see a use case where, let's say, all the soccer games start with, soccer A and soccer B and soccer D, but football's, sorry, this is, football, so you want to make and those are in the same field. Obviously, we could split the names.
You could construct your field so that the common entity, which is soccer, is the first field, and then A or B is the second, right? And
right. So I think we could argue we don't need it here because we can always construct our fields not to require it. Yeah. But I can easily imagine cases where you might want to have authorization tokens that say in Las Vegas you can watch soccer, but in the UK you have to watch football, and and that doesn't have any, that's a reasonable thing to do at this authorization level. But at the other level where you're saying, I'm subscribing to something, we don't need any of that, and it has a huge performance impact on forwarding the packets. Yeah. So it's a control plane, data plane, totally separate things. So all I'm arguing here, I don't know what we should do here. I'm just saying it doesn't need to match the base. That's the only argument I make.
And we have an open issue on this, so.
Okay, Alan, please be brief or take it to GitHub.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I would prefer they do match, and that puts some constraints on how people design their namespaces, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. Mozanetti, on these matching rules, I'm glad you pointed out earlier that Warp is constraining the namespace and name to be like a UTF-8 or something. Yeah. Are you also constraining that there's a rule for concatenation of the tuples and there's a known delimiter? Otherwise, how are these matching rules working?
Yes, we will use probably the slash as the tuple delimiter. And we need to define that in
And then you're going to define escaping for the slash in all of the names?
Well, we wouldn't go with UTF-8. I think we'll go with something that's URL safe for our encoding so that we don't get slashes in between slashes.
Is that in there already? This is a future TBD?
No, this is a need to do it now. I think it's underspecified in the current version of Warp, which is why I'm raising it here. So
I'm glad you're raising it, yeah, because I wasn't even thinking about this.
Okay, and I think this is just, we inherit cat. Cat was with HTTP. We return a status code. If you have a problem, we need to convert that to a mock message. This is just a to-do item, and there's nothing to actually debate about this, but it's another open issue that I welcome comment on how to map to the appropriate error message. And our call for action is we would like to request adoption by the MOQ work group. We realize that the work group doesn't have to be home for everything or anything over MOQ-T, but we think a common and generally applicable authentication scheme does seem like a core requirement for interop, and therefore we would propose this as a candidate.
Yes, regarding the working group adoption, I think we do a show of hands here on who's for working group adoption and cut to the chase. So we'll start the Paul.
While he's doing that, since we're out of time, if you have any questions, any comments about any of the issues that were presented, please just go to the GitHub. And once again, Will, there's plenty of action in the Zulip for you to
In
produce.
Zulip. Thank you very much.
One comment about this is that I don't think working group adoption of this scheme precludes additional work on other schemes with significantly different properties. So
I can't get the tool to work, but I'm a yes.
Okay, I think this has stabilized. Let the record show that there's 17 yes, no no's, and a number of no opinions. So we will go for confirmation on the working group list of this working group adoption. So.
Everybody's so tall. Okay, this is a slightly updated version of the deck from Tuesday. Oh, clicker. That's a bear, by the way. This is stuff we talked about on Tuesday, which we can go through. Okay, day 2. Wait, this isn't the latest copy. Yeah. There's a version. There's a 2, right? Okay. Well, that's it's fine. It's fine. There's only one slide. It was a cool looking slide, but I can just talk to it. I can just make it up, and people can imagine and check on Data Tracker later. So just for the don't waste time. Okay. Boop. Okay. Okay. So imagine between these two slides, another slide that has a table. This table has 6 columns. Each column has a GitHub label. And then the row tells you how many issues we have under each. The first one is called not transport. There are 4 issues in not transport. These are just placeholder issues in MOQ. There's one that marks parked issues. I believe there are 29 parked issues. These are issues that we think we need to wait for something else to happen before we plan to address them. There's another column for editorial issues. An editorial issue is ready for, unless it is assigned to someone else, anyone in this room could start writing a PR for that editorial issue right now. They're all ready to go. And I think there's something in the high 20s. There is a column for needs PR. These are not editorial issues that we also believe are ready for anyone to begin writing a PR unless they are otherwise assigned to someone or have a different tag. I think there's about also in the 20s. So between those 2 categories, needs discussion, needs PR, there's something like 50 issues we think could be closed if you open your editor right now and start typing. Please do. We need help. There is also a category for needs discussion. There's about 14. We're going to talk through them here. And then there is a category for triage, which are new issues that have come in. The editors have not met to assign. Oh, look at my beautiful slide. And my numbers were right for the most part. There's also a column for has PR, issues that already have a PR open for them that needs to be reviewed, approved, etc. The total number of issues we have is 127. It sounds like a lot. It's an improvement of about net 30 closed since Bangkok. We peaked in the mid 150s. So we're making progress. We need your help. And we'll go through some of the needs discussion. Oh, okay. That's good. We'll go through the ones that are open. This is not an issue, it is a PR. I wanted to make sure people are aware that we are creating a new variant format that is not the RFC 9000 variant format. 1016 is the PR. If you'd like to go review it, if you want to know why we are doing that, the trade-offs, we want to make a slightly different trade-off between small and large values. We want to have more 1-byte values at the expense of fewer 4-byte values. And some people want to support full 64 bits. So there's a proposal. There are some questions that are open. It's not quite ready to land. We will also not land this until ALPN is done because it will break everything, and including version negotiation. So it's sort of on hold, but please, if you really care, I just didn't want someone at Working Group last call to be like, no one told us you were making new varants. So it's happening. Next. Okay, this is an editorial PR, and I think it has enough stamps for us to land it per the process. But I just wanted to go through because the announce verb has been with us since like draft 2. But if you look at this table, you have subscribers and publishers, and tracks and namespaces. So if you're going to subscribe to a track, that verb is subscribe, and if you're going to publish, if you're a publisher, that's publish, and if you're going to subscribe to a whole namespace, that's subscribe namespace. And if you're a publisher and you want to publish, if you want to advertise that you are publishing a group of things under a namespace, you use announce. So one of these is not like the other. This PR is just a rename. I just wanted to make sure people got some more eyes on it. And I've asked a few times and I don't ever get any more +1s. And so does anybody want to talk to it for like 10 or 15 seconds? Like thumbs up, thumbs down. We ready for this? You want to keep announce?
I think I've given +1 on this PR. I would like to see if this getting merged. It's been, and the symmetry applies pretty well.
I'm sorry, can you speak up just a little bit?
The symmetry applies pretty well. So
the symmetry is good. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, if I don't see a -1 in like the next week on this, I'm going to land it. All right, next. And you're going to keep time on me since somebody.
Yeah, you have 40 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so these are some needs discussion issues. 908 feature modularity. So this comes into like what is required for different types of MOQ entities to support. How do they advertise that? So right now, the way it doesn't say anybody has to support anything exactly, and every verb has an error code that says not supported. But that probably isn't gonna. This may be not what we really want to say. So one question is like, what is mandatory for a relay to implement? Like if you're going to call yourself a mock relay with a capital R, do you have to support subscribe namespace, for example, and publish and everything fetch? So that's one question. One is what is mandatory for a publisher to implement? Like maybe it only needs to implement publisher. Maybe it's going to receive a subscribe as its mechanism for publishing. Does it need to support both? Does every publisher have to support fetch and track status and all the other messages? Same set of questions for subscribers. And are you allowed to just close a connection if you get a message that you as a client, you don't want to support, or does that have to be we have language that says any non-session error can be escalated to a session error for an implementation specific reason. So we can't really tell you. We've already told you it's okay to close, but if somebody wants to add feedback. So come to the mic and tell me what the working group thinks.
I can't find the right tab right now. Sorry. Ian Sweat, Google. I think it might be fine to just drop this and see how bad it is.
When you might drop this, what do you
like
mean?
Don't bother doing not supported. I mean, I made a comment, like a few of these things, like you can kind of just ignore them and announce if you don't want to use it because it's not relevant to you.
So actually ignoring a message is not great for the person who sent the message because they are waiting for you to send a response. So if you can send an okay, if somebody sends a published namespace, you can be like, great, okay, I'm not going to ask for that thing, but like.
Maybe there's a corollary here, which is like subscribe namespace, like sounds clever, but like you might subscribe to a namespace and never want the announces. And maybe we should just like add a bool that says like, I only want the tracks. I don't know. Because otherwise someone's gonna send you an announce out of the blue. And I mean, if they do that, then like, whatever, that's on them.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just going to drop it on the floor and move on.
Yeah.
Like, why would they do that? That's just a bit wasted bandwidth.
Like, I'm still trying to discern what your opinion is here.
I think, I mean, to me, the only feature in this whole protocol that is like something I would want someone to plausibly not implement is announce, because I think there are use cases that don't need it. Everything else, I don't think I really want to make optional, but maybe I'm like thinking about this wrong.
I think so. Just for context, like Victor opened to issues saying like, I don't know, I'm a smart TV and like I only want to subscribe to tracks. That's the only thing I want to do. What are my responsibilities? Do I have to like? Is it okay to just say not supported if the relay sends me a publish? Like, What are there strict requirements? I mean, and I go back to like, I don't know, you can write an HTTP server that doesn't support all methods, like, and that's fine. There's an error code, like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to receive most things. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Mike. Oh, no, you're not Mike.
Oh, did I? Oh, I can't. That's not what it's showing me.
Mike to the mic.
Mike to the mic.
All right, Mike English Cloudflare. I would like to keep not supported for now. Like maybe by the time we get to working group last call, it can go away. But there's a bunch of stuff that I have not implemented yet, and I would like to be able to get implementation experience in the field using not supported as a signal for things that are not there.
Okay, so
I
guess I'm a little bit curious about the end state, particularly for relays, because I'm sort of thinking that it may be okay to say that a relay has to support all the stuff if you're going to be a relay. Now, it's fine if your implementation currently returns not supported, but you can't be a relay with a capital R until you support everything. Does that work for you, or?
That's a bigger question. I would rather not tackle at this moment. I just wanted to say, like, I don't want to lose not supported.
You don't want to lose not. You want the granularity to say, I don't support individual verbs. Okay.
Mozanetti, I can't imagine a world where it's success if relays just don't implement, most things. How would a client even know until it tries to connect to a relay network? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think by far the most important thing is to nail down in the spec what is mandatory for relays, and I would agree that everything should be mandatory. I don't know what you would do as a client. How would you know where to go? It doesn't make sense to not have relay support these things.
I'm hearing mandatory for relay. Everything should be mandatory for relays.
Yes.
What about publishers and subscribers that
I
are
mean,
not relays?
Those are like application profiles. So I don't imagine that you can force them to support something because they're the application. They know what they want to do. They don't want to support something that's totally outside of their application. But the relays are not an application. The relays are a service for the whole network. So I don't think we should constrain the end publisher, the original publisher, and end subscriber.
Okay, but relays are must. Okay, thank you.
And remove the language about publishers and subscribers in general. Make it very specific about the original publisher and the end subscriber, so it doesn't conflate it with relays in the middle. Oh, I'm a publisher, I don't have to do this.
Well, there are such things like a republisher or something, I guess there may be cases of things that are neither.
A republisher is an original publisher.
Then I don't know, a proxy is an example of something. It's not originally publishing anything, but it is a publisher and a subscriber, but not a relay.
What's a relay? Oh, what's a proxy?
Well, let's talk about
anyway, yeah, talk about it. But look, I feel very strongly that all of our discussion and assumptions on the working group of how everything's going to work is based on the fact that relays have to implement all the stuff in the base draft. That's why it's in the base draft and not an extension draft. And I mean, I don't think it really matters what you say about the end subscriber and stuff, but obviously, it's hard to say somebody's a publisher if they don't publish anything, right? So I don't think it matters as much there, but I think that if you think logically about each messages, you get to the conclusion there are some things that even the original publisher or the end subscriber do have to support to do anything. But I agree with Mo's point. It's just like, if a given application use, like let's say Warp said, we would never use subscribe namespace, that's fine. It doesn't mean that client's broken because they will never issue that request. But I feel that the important thing is relay. And I'd rather see error message for it go away, or a very, if somebody sends some very generic sort of, close the session or whatever. I mean, I understand there's debugging in the meantime. There's going to be lots of people who don't support things, but I think we need to define the spec for what the end goal is, not what's the intermediate development stuff.
Okay, so I want to just make sure I got what you said. So one is relays must implement everything, and then applications don't necessarily need to implement everything. But then I'm not sure I got the point about how, you want, like, if I'm a subscriber.
I'll put the last point more clearly. I didn't, you're right. Okay. So the last point is, if we see relays must implement everything and then provide them a way to report errors when they don't, that is going to be a disaster. We should not do that.
Okay.
That's like must, but we know you won't, right?
Okay, I think the problem is that we use the same set of messages for relays and non-relays, and non-relays may want to say like, hey, you sent me an announce, I'm failing it because I don't support announce, and that seems fine. But I understand that a relay sending that is not okay. Maybe we can just handle that with the error code is there, but relays can't send it. Or if a relay sends it, close the session.
I'm on the same page with you. We have to figure the nuances of that.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Victor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're quite loud compared to yesterday in web transport.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
A little bit.
Yeah. So, mm, the motivation behind this issue is that there are generally kind of two kinds of protocols. There are protocols like QUIC, where you write like a giant spec, and then have everyone who implements read all of this, and even if it has obscure features like new token or God knows what else is there in RFC 9000, your library takes care of that, and you don't think about it because you have a nice API. Then there are protocols like, to some extent, WebSocket and RTMP, where the protocol is relatively small, and people end up re-implementing them every time. And every time they re-implement it, they basically just write code until they have something that works against some test peers that are talking. In case of WebSockets, it's a browser. In case of RTMP, it's like ingestion server or something. So my concern here was that currently we define the draft around like it is a draft where you have to read everything and understand everything in order to implement everything. So it's a bit like QUIC. So my fear is that if this draft gets widely adopted, there will be clients that will like, I am a client that's an embedded device that only implements subscribe, and then someone tries to send a publish to it and it explodes. So that was my motivation behind the issue.
Do you think that what has been suggested at the mic beforehand, which is that relays have to implement everything, maybe we retain the not supported code that a limited subscriber or a limited client can send if they get something they don't like? Do you think that is sufficient to meet your concerns?
Honestly, not clear. I definitely agree that relays should implement everything. And it is not entirely clear to me whether having not supported matters, since you can turn down an announce or something for any reason. Like even if you don't have not supported, our library by default just like rejects all of announces, and you have to be able to reject announces. All of this, but
okay. Thanks. Zahid.
Jahid Nokia. So ideally, I think this, if you're a relay and you're relaying some publishers, you are going to support everything the publishers support. But I also think a relay might actually relay more than one publisher. So if you have a subset, if you have something like, okay, publisher can implement a subset because something could be gradually deployed, right? I mean, we're not meant. If we say like, no, if you're a publisher, you need to do the base thing, everything need to support it. That might actually, I don't know how the deployment will look like. People might want to gradually do that. So I'm expecting that if I'm a relay, I'm relaying multiple publishers. They are a subset of it, and relay should actually cover all of them. And for the gradual deployment, I think not supported could be a good thing, so that I can say like, hey, you have a client, you have multiple subscriber, yeah, one publisher supports this, one publisher doesn't support this, and relay could say not supported for a particular thing. By mistake, you can assume as a client like everything is supported. So I think it would be good to have something that says like a relay would actually, if it is relaying some publisher and publishers the features, it should support all of them, but it can also support this not supported thing, so that, I mean, I don't know Will's case, but sometime you might want to get back and say, no, I don't support this one. And I'm really thinking about, if I'm a relay, I'm trying to deploy it in my network, I cannot be 100% sure like every publisher supports everything. So I need to have some way to understand that one from the publisher side also, tell the client what I support, what I don't support.
Okay, are you saying that okay, if we go with the requirement that relays have to support everything, then we don't need to do sort of feature discovery, right? You just know. Like I open a connection to you and you support it all.
So what I'm saying, like the publisher, what you need must to implement in the publisher side dictates what the relay does.
Okay. So I see the queue is shrinking and now it's growing. I would kind of like to move on to other issues. If the conclusion here is relays must implement everything, we keep the code, applications are allowed to implement the subset that they need, and maybe something around what Colin said, which is that if a relay sends that code, that's we call the protocol police. Is anybody going to speak against that? If you're not going to speak against that, please drop out of the queue. Tanji.
One more request. If you're next in queue, please line up so we doesn't lose as much time for you making your way to the microphone.
Kenji, China Mobile here. Actually, we have a case already. And then to have more than one relay deployed on the node. Actually, it's in the 5G system, the UPF. And then each relay may correspond to different application servers. So we have put a lot of effort in 5G standard to make sure some UPF that has been selected will have the relay that going to support the feature. So in the 5G standard, the effort is put on the selection of the relay. No, sorry, the selection of the UPF, but the relay is more like application part. So if you have a relay that does not support something, so in the 5G for that feature, actually it's extended reality feature with encrypted payload part, is going to cause problem. So the suggestion is to get a relay support everything. Yeah. So actually that has been in the standard already. So
okay, thank you. Are you in now or?
I'm out.
Okay.
But as chair, did you get?
I think I have a signal.
out of this?
I think I know the PR I'm going to write. It's of course a proposal, and we can have more discussion on PR once it's there.
And the conclusion then is.
Okay, but what I said earlier, like I think, I feel like I heard everyone who came for the most part said that it's okay to have a relay's got to support all the verbs.
Okay, let's go to next then.
Okay, changing context, take a breath. We're now talking about fetch. So right now when you fetch something, and there is no objects in the range that you asked for, there's actually two different ways that the publisher can encode that on the wire. One of them is it sends a fetch okay, and then sends you an empty response stream. And then that means that there's nothing there. But there is also, it can also just say, send you a fetch error, and with an error code of no objects. So I guess the question is, are we cool with that there's two different ways to do it, or do we want to have only one? And like as an implementer, I have found that like handling the no objects case in a fetch error is annoying because it means I got an error from the my relay got an error from the publisher, but it doesn't mean I have to error because it could be this no objects, which is kind of a success case. But the empty stream is like basically free in my implementation. But on the other hand, like if the publisher already knew that there was nothing to send, making it open and close an empty stream seems kind of silly. And so I was sort of torn. So I guess we could either leave it as is, or we could kill one or the other of these. Colin?
I think returning, I mean, if this was a get, we'd return, like returning a zero length stream, I think is much better on this. It's much easier to implement. It's where you're dealing with the data. I find it very hard to implement the no objects through an error. I'd much rather implement it through you don't get any objects, because I have to deal with that anyway. And so it reduces two different paths to the code to one path through the code, which is easier to test, easier to debug. I really think that it seems like a little thing, but I think that the empty response stream is a better approach to this. And I don't think that the using up a stream is very wasteful in the sense it does. I mean, like you're talking about bytes over the wire. It's not more bytes over the wire. It's all about the same here, right? So I'm not sure there's much.
It's maybe a few bytes, but we also don't expect it to be common.
Yeah, It's not a performance impact here. So I just think that it's a testing and simplicity impact.
Okay, thank you.
So Has, I would also support empty response stream, because a fetch request might have to go all the way up to upstream and then figure out what's going to happen. And we are always putting so much of effort to send all the way up, and sending one open stream then close, it's good enough. I agree that in terms of having two different ways to test the same thing is more complicated than having something, you didn't get data. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Will?
Just one counter argument here. Having the absence of something indicate a state is always dangerous to me. Because you could have just had a problem sending stuff on your stream for some reason, right? And now that state is indistinguishable from the empty response.
I have unfortunate news for you about fetch. If you don't like the absence of something conveying information, because that's entirely how fetch is designed. So if you send, it has to end in a fin. If I send you like the request ID from your fetch and a fin, that means there was nothing in there, which is, I guess, the same as HTTP, right? If you got a response headers and then a fin, your thing had 0 bytes.
That's fair. It's just my argument is for an explicit indicator that I have absolutely nothing for you, versus I'm going to send you something with nothing in it. But I'm not going to die on that hill.
Okay, thanks.
Mosinati, I think it's important to make sure that we support the case where the relay is not sure yet, and it has to do an upstream fetch. So I think we should allow for the optimization if it knows conclusively, I'm not going to give you shit. Okay, fetch error. I don't have to open a stream for that. But if it doesn't know, then I don't think we should require it to sit and wait for the entire time and then fetch error you afterwards.
Okay, so are you saying you like the current state, which has both?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So 3 people from the same company told me that 2 of them want just one, and one likes both. Please put additional comments on the list. I'm not sure I'm getting a super strong signal as to how we should resolve it. Unless we count 2 to 1 as consensus. Okay, next.
Can anyone not live with if the editors flip a coin? Okay, so if nothing was convincing to you, like flip a coin.
I hear Martin has coins.
And we'll see if anyone yells.
No, I'm not okay with alternative process. Just try and come to consensus on this for good logical reasons before you move to alternative processes.
Okay. All right, we can move on to another issue. Okay. Hope this may be quick. This may be long. I don't know. Should versus must for multi-publisher relay handling. So relays can support multiple publishers. One simple use case is make before break, where like one connection or path is going down, and then the relay is seeing 2 publishers for the same track, but they're actually the same publisher. And then there's also some more creative multi-publisher cases where multiple entities are publishing on the same track, and that creates weirdness. But our current language says that in order to support this multi-publisher case, that when you get something, you get a subscribe, you need to send that subscribe to everybody who is publishing that, who is a publisher for that track, and similar language for announce, etc. So it's just like and there's all the logical cases to make sure, like, oh, if the announce comes, then everybody who is subscribed to namespaces needs it. Anyway, it's full mesh. The question is, did we really mean must here? The relay has to do that, or are we trying to give people wiggle room about like relay implementations that either don't want to support multi-publisher or that want to do something else? I'm not sure. Ian.
I think we meant should, but we're not going to tell you when to do what. And I'm gonna propose that we tell you when to do the right thing. So there are cases when it's like make before break or something, when both have like the full content. And I think we should indicate when I do announce, like, hey, I'm doing announce, and like I have all the stuff. Like you can just ask me and it's fine. Or when I'm doing announce and it's like, this is partial information, you're basically gonna have to subscribe to other people if you want the full info. I mean, that's only 2 states I'm proposing for the moment, but like that would at least get us out of this should situation. So it's very clear, like, if I say I'm authoritative for everything, like, you should probably believe me. And if you don't, then that's a whole different problem. And if I say, like, I don't have everything, then you should also probably believe me. And, like, you probably need to subscribe to everyone in that case.
Let me throw one other case.
Or find someone who is authoritative for everything.
So let me throw a third multi-publisher case out there, which is like fully redundant video ingest, right? Like there's like two, like, and for live sports, this is not uncommon. So in that case, if each of those would say, I have everything, the relay would only necessarily be subscribed to one at a time. But
I mean, unless you're paying like, unless you're like the NFL and you're paying a lot of money, but yes.
Okay. So
like, I mean, you can imagine contractual things where like, they're just willing to pay like everything for redundancy. But yes, typically they would just be sitting there available to switch over for a fast switchover.
Okay. So what your solution to this requires sort of a new concept that, like, when I am publishing something or when I respond to a subscribe, I tell you, like, I have everything that there is to get. You don't ever need to talk to anyone else but me. Or I tell you the opposite. Like, I know that I only have part of this thing. I don't know. People can respond to that as an idea. That's a new idea.
I was thinking about sticking an announce, but I guess sure.
It should be per track. So it would be in publish or subscribe. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I guess no.
Yeah.
Maybe you may also need it for announce, like, or subscribe, publish namespace. Like, what if I have some in that namespace I have all of and some I don't?
It probably actually could apply to both, sadly. Okay. But either way, throw a param on announce and publish, subscribe.
Okay, it's an interesting idea, but I think we need to spend some more time thinking.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, I think in some cases people really do mean must, and in some cases it's like, if I'm a server operator who just wants redundancy and fast failover, then I'm clearly going to subscribe to one of them. And without out of band information, I don't know how I would know today.
So first of all, that sounds like an interesting proposal, some ideas. I'd be interested to see that fleshed out as optimizations to provide more granular control here. So that I hadn't thought about it. My recollection when we did this is there was actually more words meant to go with that should a little bit. And it was basically, you must do it, but we talked about the cases where one of the things you're sending the subscribe to had timed out and disconnected and you couldn't reach them. And did you have to wait for a response to them because you ever respond to the thing? So there was like a timeout exception on this type idea. Okay. We decided it was just like, that's quality of implementation type issue. So I think we basically mean must here, and we probably need to phrase this some other way or talk about, you know, must accept and say what it is. But like, this, I agree that as it is, this makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, so you said must accept in your, I didn't quite follow your exception. You're saying,
okay,
except when you can't?
So except when you can't. So imagine you have two upstream people, right? You send those subscribes to both of them, but one of those subscribes gets an error. It times out eventually.
But I think with
that's not a problem. Everything's still okay in that case.
The should versus must here, right? Okay, I think I get what you're saying, but I think the should versus must is like, can I just pick one of them, or do I have to subscribe to both?
No, unless we add some other protocol. This everything that we have talked about, this mechanism 100% requires, in every single time we've talked about it, you have to send it to all of them, not one of them, right? Like that is what this mechanism was. So I mean, I agree this text is wrong here.
Okay,
but
and then
yeah,
granted, Ian's idea.
And if Ian has a proposal to do some signaling to indicate which one of those two you mean, great, no problem about it. Yeah, all for that. But I believe that what we agreed on, like if you think of every use case, every time we've discussed it, it's always been you have to send it to all of them, right? None of this stuff works without that. So yeah. So I think this bug should be
this should be a
text. This should be a must.
Okay.
And Ian's text may add a new mechanism that's more interesting.
Okay, I gotcha.
Since Suhas, I was the one who raised the issue. So the reason is that when if more than one publisher expresses an interest saying that I'm going to publish on this track, same track, that means that they're expecting the relay to send subscriptions to them. And the relay is just following what the publishers have said. And this basically says that one relay can ignore for some implementations, another relay can do it differently, and the clients will be having a different experience at the end. So clarifying that if relay has received publishers from multiple publishers for the same track and an active subscription comes, then it has to be sent to all. And I agree, if we can save some protocol way that, I'm the current active publisher, don't send only to me, then we can clarify that, but we don't have any mechanism right now on saying that if not, this has to be a subscription has to be sent to all the publishers, because publishers have expressed interest saying that send it to me, and this basically breaks the implementation.
Okay. So another must. Thanks. Victor.
I have multiple things to say about this. So the first one is there is something wrong with this text on a conceptual level of it being in the draft, in the sense that MOQT is a protocol and it describes of what you can tell to relays and what you can expect from them, but it doesn't necessarily describe what relays do in terms of how they route things internally. Now, my observation regarding the idea that we should require relay support many-to-many publishers, because this is what effectively is being asked here, is like you have free original publishers speaking for the same track and they're all publishing on that track name, and now you have free, or like you have subscribers who want to receive from all three of those publishers and they're the same name. This is my understanding, and we started designing this protocol with the assumption that there is only one original publisher. My problem with making this a must is that making a many-to-many publishing system is much harder than one-to-many, because now if I have 3 original publishers connected to 3 relays, I somehow have to mix them, whereas otherwise I would just have to figure out where that one original publisher is. And given that we already provided you with with mechanisms like subscribe namespaces, I find this entire use case highly questionable. And my inclination is here not even for should versus must. I think this is like a must not, or generally a bad idea.
When you're talking about having multiple original publishers, does that count the cases where it's actually the same original publisher but just connected via 2 different paths, i.e. it's make before break of some kind?
I mean, if it's a make before break, then that probably works. As long as they're publishing this, like if you have publisher A and A bar and they're both publishing the same objects, then on both connections, then it doesn't really matter. Then like you really want at most one semantics, right?
I think you're saying you only want to be subscribed to one of them at a time. I think that we just don't want to be we don't want there to be a time where you're subscribed to neither of them.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
And so I think there may be a time where you're overlapped, right? I think the idea is you're like, I'm subscribed to A is reconnecting via a new path. I need to subscribe to A there again. I will be subscribed to both. And then once that same publisher detects the second subscription, it's going to cancel or out the first or the older one, but there will be a period of overlap.
Overlap is fine. What I'm not fine is with requiring you to have A and A bar where like A publishes odd and A bar publishes even, and now you have to support them in perpetuity.
Okay, so yes, I think that use case is like a little bit more like fringy in terms of like why you might have multi-publisher, but I'm not sure we right now have a way to, unless we talk about something like Ian did, like how we would even know the difference. So.
You done, Victor?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mosinati, I think we're looking at this from different use cases, and I don't think it makes any sense to try to talk about it for all of the use cases without identifying each one. I think this text is wrong for all except for one use case. So start off with multi-publisher of redundant ingest, like you said, and only for the case where it's active standby redundant. So they're not both blasting the exact same content all the time. It's active standby. Only if you go down, will I start blasting mine? So for that specific active standby redundancy, this text kind of works. You should send it to both unless you already see that one is subscribed and sending as an active subscription, then just keep staying on that one. You would never touch the other one if you do that. So for active, it wouldn't work because you should forward both the subscription to both of them so that they can both keep sending objects and you just discard them as dupes. So for active, this text doesn't work. For general multi-publisher that's not redundant in just their different publications, this still doesn't work because they're publishing different things. And for the fourth case of go away and came back, a connection break, this doesn't work because it would latch the relay onto the broken connection until it detects timeouts on that connection. And the guy that already rehydrated and came back up is waiting to get his subscription and you're not giving it to him because you're waiting to time out the broken connection.
Okay. Thank you. Martin?
Martin Duke, Google. I just want to say that I think I could legally, even this where I could legally comply with it by subscribing with forward equals 0. So we probably need to tighten the language if we actually want to get objects from everything.
I think the language around forward is when you're subscribing upstream as a relay, you should set forward one. But and again, I don't know if somebody wants, we don't have an issue that says you must have forward one. And I think we talked about that before and we were happy with the should there because there's relay is going to do.
Anyway, if I'm spec lawyering, like this is meaningless if you don't require forward equals 1.
I don't know that it's necessarily meaningless. You'll at least have this, like in the Mo's active standby case, you'll at least have, if you detect that objects stopped coming from one, you can immediately subscribe update to the other, to forward one and start getting
all right.
things.
Well,
So
I think you understand what I'm saying, but yeah. Okay.
all right. I guess, so we only have 5 minutes left, but it seems like we're going to stay, I don't know that we're going to get past this issue. So
Just quickly, Martin, on your issue on the forwarding, the should, I mean, the text that should be in the draft that we discussed around that it was really only these edge leafy sort of like relays that were only representing one thing that we're allowed to. That's why we had a should there versus a must be forward equals 1 on a bunch of those different parameters that are like that, right?
Okay.
We discussed that there might be special, an embedded relay that's running on your device, if you've set if the subscriber said forward equals 0, and this relay knew that it would have exactly one thing connected to it only ever, it might do forward 0 up. And there was a few other parameters like that were passed up, right, in that case. But as a general rule, we had it that you should set forward equals 1.
it says you
right?
should set 1.
Right,
And
but does
if
it provide any of the tech? Did it provide any of the
did it say
explanation? I
why
can't
you
remember.
Might not? I don't know. Go read it.
Yeah. Expect some issues, but yeah. But
Most
the
of
other
it,
thing
right.
too is like, I'm not interested in for the 10th time, having a discussion about whether we should have this mechanism at all. We've done it, right? We're talking about the details of whether the text in the draft represents the mechanism we widely had consensus on, right? Let's not reopen consensus on everything that we talk about.
Okay. Harold.
Hi to all this, John. Just a correction to Mo. In the case of hard real time, you definitely want to subscribe to both in active, because when one goes down, you don't have time to wait for the subscription to the other to come up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Go on.
Yeah, I had a discussion, a point that's not relevant to this issue. So if other people want to talk about this issue and you want to close it first, go ahead.
Okay. Trying to synthesize what I heard. Ian has an idea we might examine. Sounds like several folks are interested in having it be must. Victor thinks that it should be must not. Chairs.
I think it seems like we currently have this multiple authoritative non-overlapping publisher use case, and it cannot work if we don't have must modulo Ian's solution. So I think the two possible equilibria that I see are implementing Ian's solution, or writing down Ian's solution, or going to must.
Okay.
And it sounds like people can live with either, except, I mean, given that Victor doesn't like the use case, I think he'd probably prefer the if I could speak for him, he'd prefer Ian's solution.
Okay. I think what I'll do then is I'll make a PR that makes this must, and maybe make sure that the rest of the section accurately reflects what it needs to. And then separately, Ian can propose a way to make it must when the publisher identifies that it is absolutely critical and should otherwise. Okay. Suhas, as you're in the queue, are you talking about this?
No, I think what is summarized works.
You want to summarize something else?
No, what are you summarized right now? That works like a good next step. Because what we are trying to do is that we agreed on something, we're just clarifying that agreement. And if Ian proposes a way to optionally do that, happy to contact.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, Rohan, your time is now. I don't think we're going to get anything else on my list in 50 seconds.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, so you guys have 2 slots at IETF, tons of conflicts. I've never been able to attend both mock meetings over the last, 2 years of IETFs. I came to this meeting largely to see the end-to-end encryption discussion, which you guys moved to Tuesday. You guys didn't update the agenda. Please try to be sensitive of that, because there's, I would like to be able to, if I still might have come, but I might have read a different set of drafts as a result. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, there was a presentation that wasn't ready, so we had to move it up to optimize our time. But yeah,
presenters, write your slides on time next time.
But that's good feedback. I mean, yeah, we strive to do it. We failed, and I'm sorry.
Okay, I think there were probably like 6 more needs discussion issues in this deck. We will continue through them in the interims, or feel free to continue the discussion asynchronously as much as possible on those. And I yield my time.
Okay, Ian, you're up. I'm improving them right now.
Sorry about the slides being late. This is my 5th deck this week. I got a little behind.
Here you go, Ian.
Okay.
Ian.
Thank you. Okay.
Ian.
Oh, clicker. Wonderful. I'm going to talk about some issues about ADR in MOQ. I'm going to try to actually focus on the open issues. My slides are less pretty than Ali's were earlier this week on Monday, which he did a very nice talk in ICCRG, as well as a number of other people's. But I think we might be able to make some amount of at least incremental progress on some of the open issues we already have. All right. Sorry, I should read. So this is a focus on fixed qualities, not adaptive encoding, as Ali pointed out. ADR, depending on where you come from, could be a bit of a misnomer. But so this is like you're switching from 360p to 480p, not you have a dynamic encoder you can set the bit rate on to whatever you want. And at least initially, I'm going to focus on tracks where the group IDs are aligned in some way. There's not really a solution at the moment in the draft. If they're not, I will briefly discuss whether we want to deal with that. And yes, I linked to the talk. So, all right. So here are the open issues with an ADR label that I think are kind of worth discussing here. Conveniently, 3 of them are kind of tightly related, which is all around bandwidth estimation and discovery of more bandwidth. So one is about adding padding streams. One is, can we ask the related probe in some way, shape, or form, padding streams or otherwise? And another was a suggestion to add a priority for less than best effort, which is another way of saying, can I make a track that I subscribe to kind of like a padding stream? So they're not all exactly the same in terms of how you spell it on the wire, but they're very similar. And they're really getting at like mostly kind of the same core issues. for better or worse. So there's also some more on switching tracks and sync. I didn't get as much time to go into the track switching aspect, but I think there's a number of other things we can discuss, because I think actually the track switching situation is not that bad. That's my personal opinion. And I actually think some of the other issues are like more problematic at the moment. Okay. Why is bandwidth estimation and discovery a challenge? You can't discover more bandwidth without using it. Iframes conveniently produce a little bump in the bandwidth usage that can probe for a little more bandwidth, but you know, if you're trying to switch up an entire quality, they're not getting you a 2x or something like that measurement of extra bandwidth. So you're not really getting close. If you use all the extra bandwidth, you know, with padding, with whatever, you risk, you know, filling the congestion window and not being able to send anything when high priority objects do arrive, buffer bloat, packet loss, all of those things. So you risk basically getting your connection into a state that causes poor quality experience for the things you actually, you know, really care about, especially at the moment. Congestion controllers commonly use RTT, not one-way delay. I have a slide on this in the next one. And most congestion controllers are designed assuming that they are never app limited, and low latency media is always app limited. So that doesn't mean that they're, so I actually wanted to do this one next, just to go over it, then we can actually go into more detailed content. So there are limited congestion controller options. You can tweak BBR, potentially use Google CC or another real-time congestion controller. But you know, the better ones do use one-way delay for real-time applications, so you can tell the difference between whether you are causing congestion by sending or if it's just the link, something is going on with the link. I will give my little plug for quick receive timestamps, which are newly adopted in QUIC and could allow you to, or have allowed people to implement things like Google CC and related congestion controllers in QUIC. Web transport is a particularly challenging environment for this because you have no control whatsoever on the congestion controller, or like you have options, but they're very fixed. I don't have a solution for that, but I'm just calling it out as a challenge. But knowing what congestion controller is in use might actually be critical to good real-world performance. You certainly would do your rate adaptation approach very different if you're using BBR than if you're using QUIC. So, there. All right. So we have 3 issues that are around discovering more bandwidth, padding, sender probing, and less than best effort, kind of 3 variations. This is a known challenging problem. Padding is easy, but we'd probably be better off to either retransmit data that we've already sent just to make sure it gets there, or potentially even use forward error correction. I don't have a PR or anything for this, but it would be fairly straightforward to add a param to a subscription that says send duplicate data for the subscription if there's available bandwidth at, you know, a lower priority or something like that. Basically the probe with duplicates option. We've done this before in other circumstances, and it's not forward error correction, but it's certainly better than just sending garbage. Colin.
So I think you're the perfect person to ask this. It seems in many ways this would be better done at the QUIC layer. Now, obviously, we'd have to signal that we wanted it at this layer, but the QUIC stack's in a much better place to actually understand redoing some of this stuff. I understand it would be QUIC working group doing that, but I mean, are we doing this at the right spot, I guess is the question, or?
Yes, the probe with duplicates one in particular probably is better done at the QUIC layer. Although I think you can make it work not doing it at the QUIC layer. I think it's still.
We've implemented it at both layers, so.
But you're right. Like when I've implemented it in the past, I've always done it at the QUIC layer, and it's easier because you just literally have the same QUIC stream frame, and it's in 2 different packets, and then if either gets acknowledged, then you're done, and it just resolves itself like trivially. So you're right. It is certainly more straightforward to do at the QUIC layer, unfortunately.
I mean. Yeah, I guess it comes down to like, should we make a request over to the QUIC working group on providing us something like that or not? I mean, I'm out of my league here.
Okay. But would they be interested in the working group in kind of exploring that type of mechanism more. I realize it's kind of poor man's FEC, but like maybe going down that hole like a little bit farther just to see where we can get.
I'm certainly interested in exploring this both places, right?
Okay.
Mosinati, plus one to what Colin said, that QUIC is the better layer to actually implement the mechanism, but it can't do it alone. It needs application guidance. And this is what I said in CCWG and ICCRG, is that we're lacking the application APIs down to the transports to inform them about what to do. For example, we need to tell QUIC, I am app limited, and here's the next step for your probe up. It doesn't help me for you to probe up 20%. I need you to probe up 50%, otherwise I'm not going to use your extra 20% that you find. Right. So we need those application level bindings to QUIC in order for the transport to do the right thing. But the core mechanisms themselves, FEC and retransmissions, should be done probably in the QUIC layer. And real quick on the last one, priorities, we don't have anything anywhere in the specs about how you map a priority to underlying transports. Do people want to have something like that in the core spec or in some other spec to be able to say that these priorities, when you map them to WMM or DSCP or whatever, this is what you should do. HTTP doesn't even say that, right? The U0 through 7 priorities don't say anything about how you map them down to underlying transports. Do we want to say anything about that?
I wasn't planning on saying anything about that, but it's a good question. In most networks I deal with, the DSCP bits are used for purposes that entirely are unrelated to the application, and they have no control over them. But that's just my experience. So,
and separate from the underlying separate from the network level stuff, just the QUIC stack, we did do some hacks for Pico QUIC to basically bypass the congestion controller for some priorities, for very high priority data.
Sure.
Not just reserve a portion of the CWIN, bypass your entire CWIN checks, because I know this is such low rate. This is audio. It's never going to cause congestion. Get it out no matter what. So I think some of that is useful in QUIC stacks.
Yeah. So that's sort of the opposite of the priority 255. It's the priority 0 means send it now unless it's really, really a bad idea. But yeah. Go.
Ian, just based on a meeting yesterday, Akamai and ByteDance are going to collaborate on a draft on how to send network level information, including congestion control information at the QUIC layer using a custom frame. It'll help with a startup because you can cache your connection window, but it'll also help with ABR. So I'm just saying that this is very early. We don't have the draft ready yet. We intend to ask for time in Montreal to present it. But as everyone goes out and invents some solution to this problem, which we think is valid, at least know that we're also inventing something, and please come talk to us.
Sure. Alan Findell. So I mean, you mentioned web transport as a challenge. I mean, if this group is going to need APIs to the QUIC stack, we have to remember that we need to go through web transport also some of the time. And that group is trying to finalize their API. And so we need to get there. If we need something, we need to ask for it stat.
Yeah. So, thank you. So the other set of questions was around reserving some amount of congestion window for higher priority data, and whether we should have any text around that. So the most straightforward suggestion would be, 255 means it can't consume the entire congestion window, or should not consume the entire congestion window, and just leave it at that and let the application figure out what that means. But you better be able to send at least a packet for your audio or whatever it is, and not fill it up all with 255. But we can also do something much more subtle, such as have a param on subscribe that says headroom is 15%, which is only use 85% of the congestion window at max or something like that. I suggest some of these things because, I think almost everyone who tries to implement these systems, if you are trying to add, say, a higher quality at a low priority, in theory, you're going to get all your low quality, high priority data first, and then you'll get the higher quality, low priority data second. But in reality, due to things like iframes and such, it's very easy to fill up all your congestion window with a bunch of high quality data that isn't actually all going to get delivered, and then you can't send your low quality data, and then everyone's like super duper sad. And I think Victor already hit that like in the last 2 weeks, just with the basic implementation. So it feels like we need something of this shape. And I don't know if this is literally just some advisory text about like, don't use up all your congestion window on your low priority data, whatever that is, or if it's something more prescriptive. Sad.
Yeah, Jahad Nokia. So I actually don't think it's a good idea to actually say anything on the mock transport about how the congestion window could be filled up, because I mean, I say the priority thing, if you really care about priority, you can have a priority queue in front of, like, before it hits your QUIC, you can have a priority queue, and you can send the mock application, or like mock transport can send whatever they think is should go out first, rather than putting something on the QUIC implementer saying like, hey, don't use condition window, or like spare some condition window for me, because as a condition control designer, I would like to keep the condition window hot. I will not like to reserve it for it, because if I reserve it for it, I need an extra time to say like, okay, where I have some priority data. What I would like to do, the application actually implement a priority queue and give me whatever they think should be going into the condition window. So I'm actually not sure this is a good idea. I mean, we can do that. I think we have tried that. I have tried that. We can do this kind of thing, but I settle myself with the priority queue instead of like mingling what should be putting in the conditional window, the transport layer.
What about, for example, Will's suggestion of like, I think so, he said, I can't remember, said, you know, when I get an audio packet, I just send it immediately.
Yeah, but that's your priority queue. You put your put your
Okay,
audio in the high priority queue, then you send it to the transport in the QUIC, and QUIC will send it for you.
That's not going to work with web transport, because you can't just bypass the congestion controller.
I understand that part. So I mean, that's why I'm saying like, okay, this is not really an optimal solution for everything. If it is only for web transport, maybe, but I actually don't know how web transport handles priority. But if web transport handles priority, it should have something like similar.
I mean, there's always going to be the challenge that if I have a bunch of like low priority data and I'm not very careful about how I schedule things, I can fill up my queue, buffer bloat loss, whatever, with low priority data, right? I mean, that's kind of.
So my main point is like, don't put the burden on the QUIC layer condition controller. Put it somewhere else, so that QUIC condition controller, condition window, all these things doesn't need to think about like wait for something to fill it up.
I wasn't thinking about doing it at the QUIC layer, saying MOQ would like decide to like delay sending an object and queuing it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I would rather minimize the number of changes we have to make to QUIC itself.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Okay.
Good. Hi, so Has here. I'm just sharing some implementation experience like what Mo was talking about. We were trying the really bad Wi-Fi conditions, and we wanted to see how the QUIC congestion controller reacts. And the exact problem that you said was happening, where we had audio packets to be sent, but we could not send because the low priority video packets got blocked. And because of that, you could not get video through, or we could not get audio through. And one of the things that we did was, as like Mo was talking about, if there's audio, don't even depend on congestion controller or CWIN. Just send it, because it does not, unless your retransmission cannot fix the problem, you don't even involve CWIN. And on the other thing that we also said is that we gave a QUIC API to basically say, can you probe at this point in time to see if you can, once you go down, remove all the qualities and you want to probe up, how can we do that? And we would like to explore, can we do, say in a track, when you do subscribe, you say, this is my bandwidth requirement or something for this track. And a relay could basically use that. When I ask to probe, it will try to probe at that level and see if it can reach that rate or not. Something on those lines might be more helpful than trying to say, I want to modify the CWIN, which might not apply in all the cases. So trying to have a track, provide some extra information to relay to trigger a probe up might be not a bad idea.
Okay, thanks. I'm actually going to talk about something similar to that. Okay. Okay, so I think the AI is, let's explore whether we can figure out how to get a feature in that, you know, is probe with duplicates as a kind of poor man's FEC, just to have some way of implementing such a thing. And we can, I guess, explore more kind of like what we want to do about the reserving capacity in the link and not fully utilizing the congestion controller for certain prioritization use cases. So, yeah. All right, I already did this one. Okay. To go to Sues's point, whether you call it server-side ABR or client-side or client-driven server-chosen ABR or whatever you have, you have some number of qualities you would like. You really only want one of them. Priorities do not achieve the desired result today, at least in transition. So there's a long-standing issue that's open for this. Now that a number of other things are settled, it seems actually like quite achievable, which is, add a group identifier that says, all these subscriptions are the same group, and which means like I only really want one of them. It would also be nice to have a way to indicate what the average bit rate of the track is. I think one proposal on the issue proposes indicating it by the client. I can also imagine it being a param in the publish/subscribe OK, so on and so forth. But I mean, this has been around for a while, but it seems eminently implementable to me. But I don't know, like, what are people's thoughts on an approach like this?
Mosinati, Will and I had a long conversation this week about some possible ways that server-side ABR could be enabled. Unfortunately, it requires some heavier weight mechanisms than we have now in MOQ-T, and it's not as simple as a group parameter and a subscribe. But we're hoping to flesh that out and get something for the interim in September.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful. Okay.
Alan Frindell, I'm curious so it sounds like if you look at the things you're proposing on the top of the slide here, it would require some changes in relays to understand what groups are, have a mechanism to communicate bit rates, et cetera.
Yep.
I'm at the point where I am going to ask everybody when they come with something new for the relay, like, what would happen if that was an extension? So what would happen if that was an extension?
This one should largely work fine as an extension.
Okay.
Right, because I think you only need to implement this on the final hop.
On the edge relay.
I think so.
I guess the publisher needs to be communicating the bit rate.
The bit rate, either you need to go to the catalog, which if the relay wants to access the catalog, or we need to shove it in some other piece of information. I mean, the client can look at the catalog and tell the server. I mean, there are ways to get it in, but it might be nice to have the bit rate in the publish/subscribe OK anyway.
Okay.
But I don't think it's a must-have.
Okay, cool.
Just expanding on what Mo said, to give people an idea of what we're doing, we're going to introduce the notion of custom filters for the forward feature of a subscription. So right now they're binary, you either forward or you don't forward. But imagine you could subscribe to those 4 tracks, say don't forward any of them, but forward me the one with the highest extension carrying a bit rate, and that would be set by the publisher. So it's exactly what you said. You can code information generically into an extension, and then we have a routine on the relay to pick one at a time. So that's the and filtering brings a lot of other benefits, but one of them would be a server ABR scheme.
Is it in WASM? Sorry, that's a bad joke.
No.
I mean, it could be.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I want something along these lines, but it does make a lot of sense to me that we might have to we could do it easily as an extension that was done by edge relays. But that wouldn't mean there wouldn't be a few small things that we needed to put as something that need to be forwarded by all the relays, that's a must for all the relays, and then an extension for a set of relays that support ABR, and we have some mechanism to discover whether your relay supports ABR.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like we could come up with a pretty good solution in that space.
I mean, even if you're doing client-side ABR, it'd be awfully useful to know what you expected the average bit rate of the next quality up was going to be before you went and grabbed it.
Yes, it would.
For example, I mean, maybe this is a warp thing. Probably not actually even more. I mean, this is probably just MOQ transport because everything has a bit rate or could have a bit rate. But okay. But yeah, I think that one probably has some traction. Okay. Last one, or maybe not, I think I have one more slide, but I only have 1 minute. Keeping subscribes in sync. The warp draft suggests approaches using group IDs and various ones. Does the working group think those are sufficient at this point? Or do we want something else like a published timestamp that again has nothing to do with the media timestamp, yada, yada, yada. It's merely just like the, intended to keep different tracks kind of in sync, whether it's like audio and video, which obviously tend to have very different group ID structure because audio is much more joinable than video, and GOPs for video tend to be much longer, so on and so forth. So, Alan.
Alan from Dell. I think, it's an extension. It would probably be, you're talking about as an object extension. I think it would be interesting. I think you could do interesting things with priority if you had this information in an extension. So
Yeah.
I think we should.
So you think an object extension header would be better than just the like heuristic of, I'm going to try to keep the groups in sync?
Well, relays can't make any assumptions about the structure of group IDs. But if you have a relay extension, if you're like relay, if this extension's there and the relay can then use it.
That's right. Okay.
Mosinati, there was a list discussion this week about this. I asked about how we're syncing tracks and things, and Ollie replied that he was using the extension header for timestamps. So the only question is, are we going to have a single extension header for well-known timestamps for both the payloads and the relays? To understand, like LOC defines a timestamp, but if we bury that somehow in payload later as a payload extension that's invisible to the relays, then do we need another timestamp extension somewhere else? So we just need to probably take to the list, how many different timestamps do we need, and at what level do they need to be in the hierarchy? I think the easiest thing is to have a single timestamp at the very top level that relays can see, unless there's a security or a privacy issue with having those timestamps visible to the relays. I think that's the simplest design.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to authenticate them, but that's it.
We're at time. Ian, what is the best venue to continue this discussion? Is there a particular GitHub issue, or should we start an email thread?
I mean, I tried to link to the issues. Some of the issues are quite long. I probably file one more just to track a few of the conversations. I guess.
Okay, can you decide on a venue and then send it to the list?
Why don't we continue discussion on issues? I think that tends to be easier to track, even though some of those things are long. And I'll try to summarize the discussion we had today, and then anything that follows it, at least we'll know before and after.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone for attending. We will see all of you in Canada, in some city in Canada, depending on which meetings you choose to attend. And have a good rest of your week.
Make sure you saw it go by in the chat. Make sure you saw the this is where we have consensus on multiple publisher, multiple use case, and the issues were filed prior to the consensus call, so you might see the